So the first question is, why do you support the For Freedom Amendment?
You know, the For Freedom Amendment is probably the first time in half a century that we have the opportunity to change the American Constitution as the Founding Fathers anticipated that we would from time to time. And I can't think of a better thing to address, a more important issue to address than the huge influence that untrackable, untraceable money is having in our elections. So in order for us to unwind some of the damage that was done with Citizens United, which equated free speech with money, I think a constitutional amendment is the way to do that, that brings people all across America together, right and left. Everybody agrees you don't need $1 billion to determine elections. And quite frankly, it doesn't bring the best people forward.
Talk a little bit about leveling the playing field in elections. It costs $1 billion to get elected to a seat nowadays. Once an amendment is passed, what are some of the benefits we'll see in our electoral process in terms of candidates, access, etc.?
You know, after Citizens United, what happened was the nationalization of politics. So small communities, not even necessarily federal offices, but statewide offices and community offices were influenced by huge amounts of dollars that could flow into areas and determine the outcome of elections on issues that they didn't even know. The people spending the money didn't know, and in many cases didn't even care. They were just pushing one partisan direction or the other. So one of the reasons why we need to correct that is the explosion of the internet, the explosion of social media. Now small town America is no longer small town America. It gets touched with the same electrons over the internet that every other place does. And so we need to evolve, and that's what the amendment process of the US Constitution was. And they set it up that way, the Founding Fathers set it up that way. They anticipated that from time to time, Americans would need to update. The seeds of reformation are actually inside the Constitution itself.
Montana was an early supporter of the amendment, the principles behind the amendment. What advice would you give to other states looking at this topic?
You know, my advice to other states is never wait for the East Coast to do something, or never wait for Washington, D.C. to tell you to do something. And as intuitive it is for a Montanan to know that, all across America, I think sometimes people think, well, until it comes down from the top, until our U.S. senators and our congressmen tell us it's a good idea, we're not going to take an initiative. That's the absolute backwards way of doing it. In order to regain the power that the Constitution anticipated, Thomas Jefferson himself and all of those other founding fathers found a balance called federalism. And that is that the states, all 50 states now, are the ones to determine the outcomes of our country, and only in the case that something is said specifically in the US Constitution is the federal government supposed to do it. And I think my advice to people is to remember that. It's not the other way around. To the everyday average Americans who are wondering why they should do this, remember that they were supposed to do it. And that only over time as it evolved, where Washington, D.C. now decides it should do everything, and then if it doesn't want to, the state should. No, it's the other way around. The states are to take up these important matters, and if it's not something that they can do, then maybe the federal government.
That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep.